Okay, and we'll start from scratch. Okay. Well, hi everyone. What we're doing today is we're talking about retrogrades in the chart. Um, so, and you are both welcome to join in because you're both well-advanced astrologers. So, this is a review basically about chart retrogrades. So what I'm going to do, well, you've probably already seen this, but astrology is basically the study of self-discovery. And so the more we, hi Luke, how are you?
Oh, I finally made it. We've had nothing but technical issues this morning. So
Really?
Lydia's got a class, and every device you can imagine wanted to do an update. So,
Oh, she should join us.
no, she's got a class. She's doing her Nat 3
Oh, well, good
right
for
now.
her. Good for
Yeah.
her.
Yeah, but it's been an absolute stress factor here this morning. You
Um,
can imagine she's trying to get on the class, and every device is just doing an update at the same time. So, yeah,
oh, that's interesting.
yeah,
It's a
yeah.
good, it's a good, anyway, I'm going to
Anyway,
continue.
you continue. Thank you. Now, I won't stay for the whole thing, I don't think. I've got a few things I got to get done, but I want to come in and see how it's going. It's
Oh,
great.
stay and hang out with us. Um, and I'll put your chart in here. We can discuss it. So anyway, astrology, as you all know, is the study of self-discovery. And so basically, why you study it, it boosts self-awareness, it improves your understanding of others. It also improves your understanding of our place and position within the universe and our lives overall in and of themselves. But it offers timing and purpose. It gains clarity and confidence. And so, what we're going to be doing today is looking at the planets and what it means when you have a retrograde planet in your chart and what that retrograde planet can symbolize. So, we're going to be focusing on retrogrades. But before we start, I'm going to focus on the planets. So this is pretty basic for all of you, basically. So I'll skim through it. Um, but the planets themselves represent functions and energies and life principles. So they are actually the actors that generate the events in your life, and then you get to respond to what comes. And they all typically move in a cyclic fashion around the sun in a forward motion. And so it's basically the cosmic clock. So you have the sun and then you have all the planets around the sun. And the planets actually give us the personal characteristics that make up our energetic self. So most of these planets have satellites that revolve around them. We're not going to be focusing on the satellites. The moon is the Earth's only natural satellite, and the sun and the moon themselves are the luminaries in our charts. So they do not retrograde, um, and they are always in a forward motion, fully functioning in a forward motion in their energetic makeup. We also have asteroids, but basically, we are looking at life through a geocentric view, which is that the Earth revolves around the sun and the planets revolve around the sun as well, but from the Earth's perspective. But basically, the planets and the rotation around the sun create the cycles, and the cycles are what create patterns and the patterning in our lives. And they repeat, as do patterns in our lives repeat. So we either get it the first time or we repeat the same pattern over and over and again until we get it. Um, Basically, what I want to show you here on the screen is the this is the planetary motion for
Oh,
2026.
oh, sorry. I didn't realize.
That's okay. This is the planetary motion for 2026, but you can start to see how the planets retrograde. So typically, if we look at Mercury, which is the closest planet to the sun, it retrogrades 3 times every year. Sometimes, depending on its cycle, we can have 4 retrogrades or a partial fourth retrograde of a Mercury cycle in the same year. But typically we have 3 Mercury retrograde cycles every year. Every 2 years we get a Venus retrograde cycle. So in 2026, we're going to have a Venus retrograde cycle at the end of the year. We are not having a Mars retrograde cycle this year, but typically we will have a Mars retrograde cycle also every 2 years. We have Jupiter cycle retrogrades. When you see this little nook in the chart, that means it's retrograding. Every year we have a Jupiter retrograde cycle, we have a Uranus retrograde cycle, a Chiron, Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto. They all retrograde. So all the planets typically retrograde every year. Well, not every year, but they retrograde. And so the likelihood is strong that we will have retrograde planets in our birth charts. There are only a number of times throughout the year, pockets that range maybe a month, 6 weeks at most, where all the planets are direct. So you're very fortunate if you were born during one of those times where you have all the planets direct in your chart. And I just described all of this to you. Here's the details. See if there's anything I didn't cover. Yeah, Mercury, 3 retrogrades, Venus every 18 months instead of 2 years. Yeah, so we went over all that. Okay, what we didn't go over is that each planetary cycle, as it retrogrades, the planets, what they do is they go back and forth. So when they're going forward, they're functioning with full integrity, with purpose, and in a psychological manner that is intact with your consciousness. When they're retrograde, you're assessing, you're reassessing the consciousness, you're reassessing your whole psychology about the matter of the planet itself. And we're going to go over that in further detail as we go along. So here we are. What is a planetary retrograde? So again, when the planet is moving forward, it's making a circle or a cycle around the sun. So when it appears to go retrograde, it's actually the closest to the Earth. And when it's closest to the Earth, the energy of the planet is more intense and top of mind. But I'm sorry, did someone come on? No. But it actually, it appears to be going retrograde because the motion of the 2 planets, it's from the Earth's perspective. All of this is from the Earth's perspective. So when the other planet is passing it, the Earth is either going faster or the other planet is going faster, and there's a distortion of the energy in that period of time. So it appears that the planet is actually moving backwards, but it's not. It's an illusion, but it's also a distortion. It's a distortion of the energy that it represents. And so when you're looking at a Mercury retrograde, this is the cycle of the Mercury retrograde. And so when you see these 3 loops in the center, This is the retrograde period. So when you have a retrograde period, when it's the closest to the sun, that's actually the midpoint of the retrograde. That's almost like the aha in the cycle of the retrograde itself, but you still have to complete the cycle. By the time it gets around and starts moving forward again, the retrograde has completed. The patterns are different. So when we have a Venus retrograde, we have 5 loops that loop in the center. So we have actually, this is over an 8-year period. This is over, so the Mercury retrograde diagram is over a 1-year period. The Venus retrograde diagram is over an 8-year period. So, and each one of these, like I said, is 225 days. And it creates the shape of a pentagon or a star. All of these are very geometrically positioned. It's actually quite beautiful. It's the language of the stars. But Venus retrogrades typically cover 4 months. The Mercury retrogrades typically cover 3 weeks. Okay, and then when we have Mars retrogrades, and this is actually more of a clear understanding or a clear picture of what actually happens, where you can actually understand it cleaner. You know, this in the center here is the cycle of Earth, the blue circles, and then because Mars is outside of the Earth, it's moving slower, and you can see when the two get to this number 4 stage, these the speed of the distance starts to overlap and appear backwards. So if you can see what's happening here, you know, based on the speed, you can see how this loop gets created. And that loop is actually the distortion, but it's also, it holds a very prominent, I'm going to say, function for all of us to process the energies of these planets. And basically, when these retrogrades appear in our personal charts, they focus on an area of life that will be profoundly analyzed for a short period of time. And all of that has to do with psychological and soul growth throughout our life. So the retrogrades actually do have a significant function. A Mars retrograde typically takes about, it's a total of 7 months when you count the shadow periods and before the whole cycle is complete. But the retrograde itself is about 2.5 months. Does anyone have any questions?
Nope.
Okay.
That's me.
Well, and hello, Raven. Okay. So we focused, and so this is typically the cycle of a retrograde. All right. So you can see based on that loop I just showed you, the forward moving motion before the planet turns retrograde is called the pre-shadow period. And what you want to do with any of these planets, and I actually have a calendar that triggers these points, but you can also look in your ephemeris to determine when these pre-shadow periods and post-shadow periods play out. The pre-shadow period, do you want me to get technical?
You can if you like.
The pre-shadow period of a retrograde, first of all, you're going to look at the people that come into your life, the situations that come into your life, the experiences, because those are going to be the players for that retrograde experience for you. The way you determine the pre-shadow period is you look in your ephemeris and you see when the retrograde starts. So say if you have a Mercury retrograde, and the Mercury retrograde goes from 0 degrees to 25 degrees of Gemini, or it goes from 25 degrees of Gemini back to 0 degrees of Gemini, because it would go backwards. So you have a 25-day window of that or a 25-degree window of that retrograde. To find out when the shadow period is you look at when the 0 degree Gemini actually took place, because that's the ending point of the retrograde. So you go back in your ephemeris and you look for the end point of the retrograde. So say it's 0 degrees Gemini, you go in your ephemeris and you see when 0 degrees Gemini actually took place before the retrograde took place. So that's your shadow period. That's the beginning of the span of time that's going to be under analysis. Okay.
Can I just clarify that?
Yes, please.
I was just going to say, so let's say what you were saying there, Diane, is when let's say Mercury is going to be retrograde from 25 back to 0,
Yes.
then you go to your ephemeris and you look at when Mercury first passed 0 degrees, heading to the 25. And that's when it starts its shadow, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And then when
Yes.
it gets to 25,
It
you go,
retrogrades.
okay, it's retrograding. And so, in other words, the full effect of the retrograde starts at when it first passes 0, in this instance, right up to 25. Then it goes retrograde back to 0, and then it's got to go through the forward moving again to get past 25. And that's the whole period, correct?
Yes. So when it
Okay.
gets after the retrograde, it goes back to 0. Then from 0, it turns direct, and then it goes to 25 again the second time. And actually, it's the third time. The final time, when it gets to 25 degrees Gemini, that is the end of the cycle, but that's also the mark of the end of the shadow period, or the post-shadow period.
Yeah.
Is that clear enough?
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So if you look at this here, the station retrograde is when everything appears to stand still. So the planetary energy slows down, and it seems to hover over a degree, depending on the planet. You know, if it's Mercury, it might just be a day or two. If it's Jupiter, it might be stationed at the same degree for 5 days. You know, if it's Pluto, it might be stationed at the same degree for 3 weeks. It really depends on the orbital path of the planet. But when it slows down for the station, it appears to be not moving. And when it's in a station period, it's extremely intense. That energy is being burned into the chart, into the consciousness. And if you're born with a station planet, it's a very intense, it can actually be a gift. Okay.
I would say that depends on the planet.
It depends on the planet, but I said it can. But you have an innate knowing.
I'm born with a stationary retrograde Pluto, so I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yes. But Trump has a stationary Jupiter, I believe, in his chart, right?
Okay.
I believe he does. And look at all the gifts he's been handed. Okay, so you have this, and then it goes retrograde. So during the retrograde period, it's basically a time to go within. So when it's moving forward, the energy of that planet is being expressed outside in the world. You're interacting in the world, you're communicating, the world is interacting with you. That's the forward motion of the energy and of the planet. When you're going through the shadow period, You're actually you're starting to realize that things might not be going the right way, or you may not be on board with something, or you start to question the way things are being handled. But things you know things start to play out that maybe not 100% with you. So when we have a station, you know, typically an event takes place where it's a marked time of, okay, I've got to figure this out. I've got to figure out if I'm on board with this. If something's been deemed wrong or incorrect, I've got to fix this. But there's typically a marked period where you go within, okay? And it's not only on a personal basis, it can also be on a professional basis, it can be on a global basis, but you start to fix and integrate whatever you're not okay with internally. So it's an internal time. It's a time to process, to slow down, to heal the dilemma, and to figure out what is right with you, how to solve a problem, how to figure out what your stance is. So it's a period of processing, but it's primarily an internal time to go within. Um, when it goes stationary direct again, and the planets seem to slow down, they don't move forward, they seem to be not moving at all. Again, a very heightened time. But that's the time where you figure it out. Okay, I know what I'm going to do. You haven't done it, but you know what you're going to do. You've figured out what the problem is, what the solution is, how to move forward. And the next stage after that is the post-shadow period, which is right here. And then you're going to, at that point, move forward with a new plan of action, a new understanding, a new attitude, whatever planetary energy this is. The completion isn't over until you get to that final degree again. So if we're going with the scenario of 25 degrees Gemini, the process doesn't complete itself until you get to the ephemeris gets to 25 degrees Gemini again. And then that whole cycle is completed. Now, if it's a longer cycle and it's a bigger problem or an extended, if you're only dealing with a part of a situation, the time the next retrograde comes in, you will likely pick up where you left off and you will re-evaluate or pick up the project again. Wherever things have been left off, you will then tackle it again when the retrograde returns, when another retrograde returns. But it can be, again, with different situations, different people, different projects. So what they typically do is, the process is the external system or relation breaks down. It could be a public announcement, it could be a medical diagnosis, it could be a legal decision, it could be a travel plan, it could be a project, it could be a publication. In this case, we're talking about Mercury, so then you deal with the analysis. But the retrogrades can also bring back things from the past that have been unresolved or that are due, depending on the planet. So, if it's a Mercury retrograde, it can bring back money, valuables. It can bring back unfinished projects. It can bring back money. Anything that has to do with commerce exchange, communications. It can bring back siblings. Retrogrades typically are good for research or for going in, diving in, figuring it out, re-examining. Typically during retrogrades, depending on the planet, it's not a good time to make major moves that planet rules in an area of life that are critical. So, depending on the planetary energy, if it's Mercury, not a great time to print a publication, or sign a contract. If it's Venus, not a great time to get married, or even declare marriage, or declare or accept a vow. Because the planetary energy is not 100% when the planets are retrograde. If it's Mars, not a good time to have surgery. I mean, there are many other things that these planetary energies can be good for. Jupiter, not a great time to take a trip unless you've been there before and you're returning. Or plan something that's a large expense. Saturn, not a good time to open a business unless you're opening a business that does extensive research or that has to do with things that pertain to retrograde Saturn. Uranus, not a great time to introduce technology or new products. Neptune, not a great time to introduce new films or go on a cruise unless you're returning. And Pluto, not a great time to launch a terrorism or a violent attack, or actually, on a positive note, new construction, building. You want the planetary energy in full force that the planet represents when you initiate something new that you want to be successful. Any questions?
Interesting with Pluto retrograde, wouldn't be a bad time to kind of like if you were to renovate the house or do something renovating?
It would be good for renovating.
Yes.
Anything that has an RE in it, it
Mhm.
would be good for redoing, researching, reevaluating, renovating, rebuilding, um, reigniting, anything like that. But not something that you want the full planetary force for.
Okay.
So now these things may be too basic for you guys. You're all well advanced astrologers. Raven, where are you at astrologically?
She's in her first year. She's doing. Raven, are you doing Nat 1 or Nat 2 now
I'm currently in that too.
yeah,
Yeah.
with
Okay.
Barbie?
Well, then
Yeah.
I'm gonna review these quickly, but Raven, while I have your attention, let me get your birth information because I'm gonna put you I'm gonna look at charts in the end of this. So can I get your birth information?
Yes, ma'am. It is July 18th, 1994, Chicago, Illinois. Well, I'm sorry, I
What
forget the
time?
time. 1822.
In Chicago?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Hmm.
And you have a 26-degree Sag ascendant?
Yes, ma'am.
What's going on here? I might have to do your other charts again. I might have not had the correct wheel. I'm just going to leave that for now. Okay, so I'm going to quickly go through this, and you guys can jump in and actually help me if you like. So basically, I'm going to review the planets, and then I'm going to review the energies of the planets, and then the retrograde experiences. So the three primary planets are the sun, which of course is represented. These are the symbols, the sun symbol, a circle in the middle, and the sun represents your identity, your consciousness, who you are, the present, how you see yourself, where you're comfortable, where your attention lies. But it basically represents you in the chart. And the sun does not retrograde. Okay, it's always a forward moving motion. Then we have the moon, which is represented by this glyph here. And the moon has to do with the inner essence, the inner core, the emotions. So it's your feelings, it's memories from the past, it's history. It has to do with genealogy, your ancestors, your childhood, anything, past lives. It could also have to do with the public, the masses, but it has to do with your inner psyche, and basically your emotions. And then, of course, we have the moon does not retrograde either. And then we have the ascendant, which really isn't going to pertain to this lecture today, but it's here on the slide. The ascendant is the rising sign, and it has to do with the mask or the outer appearance that you let the world see. It's how the world sees you. The sun is how you see yourself. The ascendant is how the world sees you. So it's the outer layer of your being. It's your persona, your image. It's also a lifelong understanding of learning about that sign and energy on your ascendant. Because it's your ascendant doesn't mean that you own it. You are learning that throughout your entire life, how to be that, and how to be that to yourself. It's what you're showing the world that you want them to see. But throughout your life, you're learning how to be that, to become that yourself. It's an interesting way to look at it. Then we have the traditional planets. We have Mercury, which is the closest planet on the inner ring. And this is the glyph or symbol of it here. And so when we think of Mercury, it's the energy of I think. It's the messenger. It's how we communicate, what our logic is, what our rationale is, our reasoning, our ability to formulate concepts. So it has to do with early childhood education, our early learning skills when we're children and how we learn. And that is, again, based on the planetary construct of our chart. Our aspects that are in our chart will tell us how our Mercury functions as well. But it has to do with how we grow, how we make decisions, and how we can, are we fast in processing? Are we slow? Are we sharp? Are we, do we need a lot of time to think? But it has to do basically with not only thinking, communication, it has to do with transits, logistics, getting from here to there, traveling. It has to do with commerce and trade. It has to do with transit and travel and, automobiles, any type of transportation. But it's the network. It's basically the network, the mental network of our being. Venus in the chart here's the glyph here. It has to do with harmony and beauty. It has to do with desires, what we want, what we want to attract to ourselves, what we want to possess, what we seek in interactions with others. It has to do, you look at Venus in the chart and it shows you what you're turned on by, what your values are, what you go after. It also shows the ability or how you charm, what your taste is, your artistic ability, or how you may show these different characteristics through the quality that it's in, what you may be masterful in. So it has to do with relationships. It has to do with anything that involves relationships with people, social events. it can have to do with creativity. It has to do with fertility. It has to do with, um, birth, growth, the cycle of growth, the cycle of expressing, the stages of growth. It has to do with all different levels of finance, assets, material wealth, um, anything that has to do with what you own, what you have, what you possess, your talents, um, all of these things. Anything else you guys want to add to for Venus? But it has to do with bonding. You want to bond. You want to attract. It has to do with the glue,
What about your money?
money, yes.
Financial influence, yes.
Money, assets, wealth.
Cash
Um,
flow?
How you value yourself also.
yeah, how you value yourself and how sustainable you are. Are you self-sustainable? What, things like that as well. Sustainability. Anything else, you guys? I can't see you.
No, I think that's okay.
Okay, there you are. All right, Mars. Mars here's the planetary glyph for Mars, it's a circle with the arrow on it. And it has to do with the action. Action, it's the active principle in the chart. What gets you out of bed in the morning? It's the warrior, how you assert yourself, how you project yourself. What are your passions? What are your drives? What you're sexually attracted to, and it's sexuality itself. It represents energy, assertiveness, ambition, competitiveness, athleticism, anything that has to do with goals, pursuing, where the action is in your chart when it transits around your chart, what's getting activated, what's getting stimulated. It has to do with productivity. Anything that has to do, it can also be, the negative aspects of it can be war, aggression, impertinence, anything that has to do with impatience, cutting, severing. Um, you know, there are both positive and negative skills for all of these planets. Negative skills of Venus could be envy, jealousy. Negative skills for Mercury can be talking too much, never knowing when to stop, or and curiosity.
With Mars, could we add to that mechanical things? So, for example, when I think it was one of the eclipses was directly on my Mars. I thought, what's going to happen here? Exactly how I was going to play out. And on that day, my car's engine blew up because there were known faults in it. So, but out of it came a better position because I ended up with a brand new engine that was covered by an an extended warranty because of that known problem.
Yeah, but
So,
Mars combustion, explosion.
yeah, exactly.
It's an aggressive act of, and it has to do with cutting or breaking
Yeah,
or
operations.
operations. It actually rules surgery and surgical procedures, which is why you don't want to have surgery when a Mars is retrograde,
Yep.
unless you're doing it for a second time. Um, and it's a redo, something like that. But it rules, they rule these planets and symbols rule many things. Um, Jupiter is a wonderful planet. It's the planet, and here's the glyph. It's the planet of expansion. It has to do with how do I want to improve my life, expand my horizons, go outside the box, learn, discover, experience. It has to do with generosity and optimism. But it has to do with growth and education and science. I believe math is Mars. Is math Mars? I think math is Mars. Um,
I'll think. I think it is.
no? What do you think, Dan?
Math could be Mercury too.
Yeah. But Jupiter is science and philosophy and spirituality, belief systems. It has to do with faith, ethics, um, acting, theater, broadening, your horizons, travel, long distance travel, experiencing the world, other cultures, other nations, other languages. Um, I love
So,
Jupiter.
Diane, according to Rex Bills, mathematics is Saturn
Math is Saturn.
because it's sorting out problems. And the other thing is it's also Mercury and Saturn. Yeah,
Mercury and Saturn.
yeah.
Was that interesting?
Because mathematicians, when I think about it, do come under Saturnian. They're a Saturnian lot.
Okay.
That's why we say maths people can be boring.
No, I have
I'm
Saturn.
stirring. I'm
I
stirring.
have I have Saturn conjunct my south node, and I'm doing math all the time. But of course, I could be boring.
You're not that boring. I don't know you to be boring.
Okay, Saturn. And here's the glyph of Saturn. Um, and Saturn is the manifester. It has to do with what you sow, what you reap. So, it's manifestation. It's material, it's concrete, um it's a teacher. It teaches us lessons. We will get the same lesson over and over and over until we master it. And then once we master it, then we get to move on to the next level. And then we get the next lesson. But it also proves our mastery. And it has to do with evolution. It has to do with maturity. It has to do with aging, the aging process. It has to do with all the physical forms of life, structures of life, gravity, physics. That's all Saturn, a form and structure. But it also is very fearful. It can tend to lead to fear and worry and anguish, and so you have to be mindful not to fall to those patterns, because it tends to fall into a pattern of lack or restriction or limitation. And so, but the way to get over that is to build forms, to build instead of looking at lack. Use that energy to build. So it represents discipline, responsibility, goal setting, working steadily, and endurance. It has to do with patience, perseverance, and eventually you gain authority. You become the boss. You become the parent. You become the head of household, the one in charge. It's the responsible one. It's the steward, being a steward. Okay. And then last but not least, we have the outer planets. These are the higher octave planets. They were discovered in the last 200 years. So they affect more of the masses. They're more generational, they're more societal planets, but they also influence our lives on a personal level as well. And so we have Uranus, which is the liberator, it's the awakener, it's the rebel, the revolutionary. It has to do, but it's mental, it's a mental planet. So it has to do with discovering new discoveries, intuitive inventions, anything that has to do with thinking outside the box, space exploration, AI, technology, new inventions, science, anything that has to do with higher educate. Well, no, I'm on the wrong planet. Uranus is for the masses, it's for society. So it's for the humanitarian, what's good for all, what's good for society. It has to do with making changes that will benefit the greater number of people and not the individual. It also has to do with making changes and reforms and being different, thinking differently, original thinking. It's not the status quo, it's breaking the status quo. It's standing outside and saying, let's change this. So it has to do with bringing in progressive ideas, making changes. You guys want to add anything to that? I love
No, not really.
Uranus. I love all these planets. All right, we have Neptune. Neptune is the higher octave of Venus. And so where Venus is personal love and personal bonding, Neptune is universal love and universal bonding. It has to do with the mystic, the intuitive, the visionary, the healer, the martyr. It has to do with the desire to have union with God, to have union with the divine, to lose oneself, to lose the ego, and to be one with the divine, or one with all, or have unity on the planet, or have unity in your life. But it has to do with blending, and you don't have form. It's the idea. It's the consciousness itself. It has, there's no boundaries or barriers. So people who have a lot of Neptune, they can identify with others, but they also don't know when to stop identifying with others. So they can blend, and merge easily. But they also are they're excellent with film and art because they get downloads of information. Their antennas are, they can perceive psychic information and uh, pull things out of the universe itself, or even out of people around them. Very interesting, but it can also be very beautiful, the way I just described it, or it can be harmful because it can lead to confusion, illusion, anything that has to do with self-sabotaging the self,
Addiction.
self-persecution, um, um, harmful thoughts about the self because of sin or perceived sins, self-judgment, things like this. Luke, what were you going to say?
Addiction.
Addictions, running away, escapism,
Escapism. Yeah.
not wanting to face, problems. It can be, dealing with trauma, anything that has to do with unresolved issues. And also, Neptune can carry the sins of the fathers, depending on the chart. It's the 12th house. Whatever you have in the 12th house, you're dealing with, the unresolved patterns of the ancestors that have been handed to you. Here, we couldn't deal with it. You deal with it. See what you can do with this. Anyway, anything else for Neptune, you guys? All right.
It's a big topic, Neptune. So like any of these outer planets, they're a big topic.
They're big topics. Each one could have its own lecture. Yeah. Pluto, I love Pluto. I always end up talking about Pluto. No matter what I start out with, it always boils down to Pluto with me. Pluto is the planet that was just discovered most recently in 1930. It has to do with renewal, but it's also the planet of death and rebirth. So it can be the planet of destruction. The negative characteristics of Pluto are trauma, destruction, violence, pestilence, disease, anything that has to do with, I'm going to say psychological death. It doesn't necessarily mean a physical death, although it could be, but it's a psychological death of innocence, of what one used to think, know, observe. And once they have a Pluto transit in their lives, they can never go back to that innocence because they've experienced some sort of trauma. It could be mental, it could be physical. But what it actually does is it transforms the psyche and it initiates the soul into the life of the person. And they're reborn on some level. They have a new way of looking at life. They have new eyes. So it can be healing, it can be regenerative. It's also it's also involved in the birth process, in the what's it called? Inception process can have to do with Pluto, because it has to do with new life. And so anything that has to do with the release of old patterns and the birth of new patterns, but it's birth of the soul. It brings the soul out. So it has to do with purification. So Plutonian, it can have to do with Pluto has to do with the atom, atomic. It could have to do with the study of atomic, nuclear, anything that has to do with alchemy, where if you use these practices for the good and the well-being, they're extremely powerful. If you use them for destruction, they're extremely negative and destructive. But once you learn how to do it the wrong way, you learn how to do it the right way. Let's put it that way. You guys want to add anything to Pluto?
I was going to say that any of these outer planets, a lot of the time the lessons are not obvious because they're not in your face. They often work on a subconscious level.
They do. And they work in a societal level. So you start to see the changes over periods of time, over, cycles of time. It could be over, 30 years, over 60 years, over, 248 years. You see how they change the masses over cycles of time. But you're right.
I was also going to say something that's very interesting is that Pluto being discovered in 1930, it hasn't even gone through one cycle since we know it was discovered. We can retrofit it into history, but we haven't physically experienced as a race yet.
You're right. That's very good. Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
It's still unfolding.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It is. But Pluto's a very interesting planet. So when people have Pluto transits, they never know what's coming. But you can be guaranteed that you will psychologically change and grow up. You will grow up.
We hope.
Yes. So basically, when we have retrograde planets, and I've already brought this out a bit, it's more in the chart in and of itself, in the natal chart, that area will be more internalized in your natal chart, more reflective. You'll be revisiting that topic in your life, depending on how long that retrograde lasts throughout your life. You're going to be questioning the characteristics of that planet, that house, that sign, how it affects your life, your chart. So they're not and they're different. You may not be expressing them externally, but there will be a lot going on internally in your life. So the general retrograde themes are to review rather than initiate, to reflect rather than outward action, to revisit unfinished matters, to reassess priorities, beliefs, or relationships. Delays that may be delayed, you know, depending on the planet and the behavior. If you have a retrograde Mercury, you may have delayed learning or processing or challenges in some type of learning in life. In But basically, it has to do with heightened introspection and self-discovery within your own life. So let's see, this is kind of the same thing. Less conventional expression. So you don't go along with the status quo. Whatever planet is retrograde in your chart, you don't just accept what everyone tells you, and you don't go along with the status quo. So you're in the process of critiquing it and figuring out what works for you. So if you are, um, if you have a Mercury retrograde, you may be a highly reflective thinker. You may be a writer. You may contemplate. You may research. You may problem solve. You're always thinking. That mind is always going. The natal Saturn retrograde, may create an inner struggle with authority or with your own authority, um, or with self-mastery. Saturn is structures, and it also has to do with taking control of situations in your own life and being responsible. So, really, depending on the planet, it will define what the retrograde experience might be. So, just a quick review of, Mercury retrogrades. Um, oh no, my things aren't working. Here, I'll just put them all out there. Okay, so the Mercury retrogrades in the chart might be communication issues, travel disruptions, technology glitches, contract revisions, reconnecting with, well, this is current though. These are transits. These aren't actually in the chart. So let's just focus on the positive use. Well, not necessarily. Um, I'll go along with some of this. So, the positive use of a Mercury retrograde is for research, editing, reorganizing, renegotiating. But again, it's an internal dialogue with the self. Okay. We're talking about the birth chart. If you're born with a Venus retrograde, that's an afflicted Venus. So you will likely be dealing with relationship issues in life, or at least in an early period, or if you get a Venus retrograde midlife, and we can tell you how to look for that. It's through progressions, but you will be evaluating relationships. So you might be dealing with issues of love, issues of value, issues of finance, things that, figuring out pleasure and joy for yourself, or accepting, be able to receive and bond in general. But you're basically assessing relationships and patterns of worth, self-worth, love, self-value, all of these things. And you're redefining that, and who's going to fit with you and who's not going to fit with you. The Mars retrograde, if you're born with a Mars retrograde, or if you have a Mars retrograde happen throughout your life, it will likely bring in a period where, when Mars is going forward, it has to do with assertion and productivity and, going after challenges and tackling them head on. And if you have a Mars retrograde, that is tackling a problem head on internally. So it's not projecting your energy out into the world, but it's projecting your energy within the self. And it has to, so maybe you're frustrated about something about yourself. So you're working on it internally, or you're working, your actions in the outside world are going to be delayed in some way, because you're going to be focusing possibly on anger or suppressed anger, or behaviors, or suppressed behaviors, or anything that has to do with, how you tackle things. So the positive use of that is how to strategically realign your energy and your actions and your behavior, and how to go about tackling problems, solving problems, conserving energy. If you have a Mars retrograde, it might be a time when you're sick and you need to heal. But you're correcting directional flow, energy flow that needs help. It needs reevaluating. It needs reintegration on in some manner. The Jupiter retrograde has to do with internalizing your belief system. Instead of, you expanding and putting all your energies in the external world and growing, you're growing your internal world. So it's an expansion. So it could be with your spiritual growth and belief system. It could be with your own education. It could be with your own, getting involved in, I'm going to say, I don't know if I want to go with politics, but you're basically looking at your philosophy and wisdom from within. You could be getting guidance from within, teachers from within, dialoguing with teachers and other planes from within. But it has to do with personal development, deep study, and inner expansion. And if you find this in a business chart or in a country's chart, then they're going through all of this themselves. It has to do with an internal study of how systems work, and how to expand the growth on the internal fulfillment and success of an entity instead of the external display of it. Saturn retrogrades have to do with reviewing responsibilities, an individual's responsibility, commitments to the self, how it's expressed in the outer world. A lot of it has to do with karmic lessons, most likely from a past life if you're born with it, or if you go through a Saturn retrograde during your life, it has to do with revisiting lessons, or solving problems that you didn't quite get the first time. So you're now reassessing where did I go wrong? So it has to do with developing internal authority, strengthening your internal discipline, rebuilding your status, rebuilding your strength, rebuilding anything that has to do with your stewardship, depending on where it plays out in your chart. What are you going to be responsible for? What are you going to overshadow, as far as being a figurehead? And maturing emotionally. Uranus retrogrades. And again, because these planets retrograde, some of these retrogrades go on 5 to 7 months out of the year. So half of us are going to have these outer planet retrogrades in our birth charts, because that's just the way it is. So if you're born with a Uranus retrograde, it's most associated with inner awakening. It has to do with awakening, depending on the sign and the house position that it's located in. It has to do with it could be an internal rebellion where you just don't agree with where you've been put in life, where you've been placed in life, who's in your life, what your situation is. And so you're reworking, and you're almost like fighting amongst yourself or within the house or position it's in, because you're getting, again, these retrogrades have to do with reassessment, readjustment, figuring out your stand. And so when I say a quiet rebellion, it has to do with an internal dialogue in understanding. So you're in a process of awakening, or you're in a process of self-discovery. It has to do with personal breakthroughs and innovation. You could be bringing out many, many new discoveries from within yourself that you're introducing into the world, but it comes through an internal process of reflection first, if that makes sense. But it's a mental unease with the way things are. The Neptune is a spiritual unease with the way things are. You know, Neptune has to do with unity. Basically, Neptune wants to go home. Some of the Neptune energy doesn't even want to be here. It wants to go home to where it came from, which is from another planet in another universe in another dimension. It wants to be with God. So it has to do with dissolving illusions and spiritual insights, seeing situations more clearly, getting intact and in touch with the psyche, with the soul, or with the misguided directions or illusions that one might be in tune with. It might be re-spiritualizing or re-identifying or reunifying the self, the soul, the insight, the guidance, and then of course the dream. Refiguring out what the dream is and who you want to be, or how you want to see something. Confronting self-deception, seeing yourself clearly. So it has to do with exploration on an internal journey. Metaphysical, mystical, spiritual, soulful. It could, take place through film, through the arts, through creativity. You could be a wonderful artist because you're going through all this soul searching, and you're bringing it out in your work, or you're bringing it out in your creative works. You could be a writer with it, whatever. But it's not in agreement with the status quo. Pluto retrogrades are deep psychological transformation. You could be a great therapist with a Pluto retrograde because you're most likely doing deep psychological work on your own every day. So you've become an expert at it. So you could very well be a counselor for someone else. But you get into shadow work, you get into uncovering hidden motivations, collective and personal renewals, but it has to do with healing, psychosis, psychiatry. It could have to do with surgery. It could have to do with empowerment on many levels, self-empowerment, societal empowerment, depending on where it's in your chart. It could be healing in that area of life for professions on a professional level. But it has to do with profound change, profound inner change. It's interesting. Anything you guys want to add? So now we're going to pull it together and look at our charts and see what we can say. Okay. How can it be 20 after 9 already? What time did we? Oh, we started at 8. Okay. I'm like, it couldn't have gone on that long. So we're going to pull it all together. And so I'm going to put copy send. And I'm gonna, this is my chart. I'm going to skip this Well, you guys all know this, how to get your birth chart. You all have your birth chart. So I'm going to skip that. And I'm going to promote you, Luke. So this is the Astro College. And are you guys all members? Raven, you're taking classes. Melody Ann, do you take classes or are you part of the college?
Not currently. I think I have in the past.
Well, you should. Luke would love to tell
I'm
you
sure.
all about
Didn't it start in Westlake, Ohio?
it. Well, it did. It's
Okay,
well,
then I've taken classes in person in Westlake.
yeah, that was with Enos Stanley.
Right.
And then but that was the physical location, but it was always an online college too, because it's always been an international college. And then Luke bought the university and has transformed it um on many levels. And Luke, why don't you tell Melody Ann all about it? Are you here? I've given Luke the baton and he's not even here.
I know Luke through the Astro Dice group.
Okay. But so through this college, they have community events, which the Astro Dice is a community events. This class is a community event. It's basically, these are free events that are available to the public or students or students interested in looking at the college, taking classes. And so these classes, you get an introduction to the different teachers that are associated with the school. And you also get affiliated with the teaching styles and you get free learning. But this is all community-based education. And then if you're interested in getting a degree, first of all, there's two levels. There's just for personal understanding and development of astrology in and of itself, to learn for your personal understanding of your personal chart and yourself. And so they have courses and classwork that focuses on that. And you enroll in those studies. And so Raven, where are you at with that? Are you here, Raven?
I'm
because
sorry.
You're a student.
Can
So
you-
are you in the personal class or are you in the professional class?
I am in the planet course, Nat 2.
Okay, so you're learning personal astrology, correct?
Oh, yes.
At this stage, she's learning natal
Okay.
astrology.
I gave you the baton, Luke, and you weren't here.
No, because I ducked off. That's why I had it. So I came back and I thought, okay, there's something I've got to come back for, and I was right. So, yeah.
And so there's the personal classwork, coursework, and then of course if you want to go on and become a professional astrologer and then read charts and do readings and teachings and for the public, then they offer a course, a professional certification for that. And Luke, you can take it from here.
Yeah, so I missed some of that. What were you
Well, I
covering?
was basically going over what you offered at the school.
Oh, okay. So basically, you've got the natal studies. You see the natal studies module. If you scroll down there,
I can't scroll down. It's a
you've a
screen capture.
screenshot, is it? Okay, that's fine. But basically, you've got your natal studies, which cover everything to do with the natal, how to read a natal chart, and that go from natal studies 1 through to 7. If you don't know anything about astrology, but everyone else does here, but if you've got people who want to say, "Oh, come along and study astrology at Astro College," they'd really need to do that basic astrology course first. So what I've set up is, if you go to the front page, if you know anyone who's interested, they can do a couple of things. They can take a little survey to find out where they're at in their journey. Number two, they can start their journey for free. So we've got Enid Newberg has put a number of small video classes on what is an astrology chart, everything from the very, very basics. That's in there as a free study module, and the first 3 lessons out of that basic astrology course. And then at that point, you go, here's your taster. Is this of interest to you? What do you want to do from here? Once you've done your natal studies, and that's where a lot of people are now, you really could read charts. What you haven't done is you haven't done all of the professional stuff for things like prediction, and that's when you go into your PSMs, which is professional studies module, and you do those from 1 to 5. And it starts off, and we're running one at the moment, the PSM one with Enid. Actually, she's teaching that. And that is to do with everything from transits, solar arcs, solar directions. And to be honest, we're even thinking about breaking that out into 2 different courses because it's such a big area when you're talking about predictive stuff. And then that goes right through. It covers everything from ethics, it covers relationships, and different types of charts and different types of house systems. And there's a lot covered in the professional studies. And then from there, once you've done all that, you pretty much know everything there is about predicting and astrology. And we try and cover off both sides of traditional and modern techniques. Although most of the stuff at the moment is taught with using whole sign and the traditional setup. But when you get introduced to new house systems, and then we're running other stuff. So you then, to become professional, you go and choose to what do you call it? Electives. And so they could be something like studying with Elena Lumen and doing your horary and electional. You might choose medical with Lynn Coiner. You might choose to go and do some stuff to do with vibrational, which we're going to introduce. And we've also got the Jyotish astrology starting as well. And that may even run as a parallel course because it's very hard to, if like people might just want to do, I want to do Indian-based astrology and do Jyotish. Well, that'll be running with Aswin. And that's nearly going to be a separate 1 to 2 year course that goes along. So people can choose. But what you get from here is all the basics of how to read charts, what they are, and everything from delineation aspects. The chart synthesis, Nat 5's running at the moment. That's a great course. And Lydia's just doing Nat 3. So the deepening planetary delineation, that's when you start using grammar and how to create actual descriptions of what's happening in the chart. So you start being able to read. So you're right in the thick of it, Raven, at the moment. And as it progresses more, what you're going to find is all of the instructors are very well trained and professional. You're going to find, and I'm just going to mention this as well. You're going to find, because we give, I think Raven, you might have access to all the astrology library. So if people join Astro College now and do it as a professional program, then we open up access to the astrology library, which is like about 400 and something, lectures / other courses. Now, don't forget that those people, some of it's advanced, some of it's beginners, some of it's in between, and some of it's based on opinion because there's people's experience, and yet some of it's based on, the same sort of stuff you're being educated on. So it's really diverse. But what our instructors are doing here is we're going to focus on the basics here. We're going to focus on how this is done and teach you. And that's pretty much it. Nat 6, for example, is astronomy. So that's a very interesting one because that's very much based on the whole sign and a number of other things. So that depending on how it's done, but yeah, there's a heap there. Diane, I reckon I should shut up. I could talk.
Okay,
But if you want to know what we offer, that's probably the biggest challenge I've got is how to make it easy to understand. So,
well,
yeah.
yes, that's always the challenge, right?
Yeah, you got it.
That's always the challenge. And then I also wanted to promote a class that's coming up that I'll be doing.
Absolutely.
And this is on where's the date?
19th of June.
Oh, but I don't even have the date on this. Oh, bad Diane.
Bad Diane.
Bad
So
Diane.
on the 19th of June, it's the same sort of thing. It's a Friday night, but I think it's on one of the alternate Fridays to when we do the chart delineation like this. And what I'm going to say, I'm going to promote you for you.
Thank you.
Is that this is where Diane's going to go through the Mercury retrograde periods for this year. And what I know of this lady, and every time she does these things, she goes to extreme lengths to explain it, probably more than what you really need, but she'll also
Oh,
make it very
Luke.
personal. No, meaning you make it very personal. You sit there and you go, give me your chart and we'll work out how this is going to go. And you give a lot to the people who you read for. You really do. So I would recommend anyone who wants to know what's going on with the retrograde periods this year and get a fairly good personal up and close understanding for yourself. Diane goes over and above every single time you've done a lecture of this kind. You give a lot more than you probably, people would expect. Let's put it that way.
Well, I'm going to end this one at,
And do a damn good
on the
job.
dot.
Yeah. Okay.
I have been known to do that.
Yeah, go for 3 hours sometimes.
Exactly what you said.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. But you know what, Luke? People come back.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Okay.
You
So
get
anyway, if you're interested in this, I would love to have you come. This is a paid lecture. So this one's $39. But it'll be very good. We'll be going over the cycles of the next two Mercury retrogrades for 2026. And then we'll go over the 12 cycle or the 12 sun signs. And so how you might experience those retrogrades this year in your own life, what to expect.
back in one second.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is put two more charts in here for you guys, the new people. It's Melody Ann. Okay, so we're gonna put Raven in here. And Luke, I'm gonna put you last if you don't mind. Luke's like, no. Luke.
Roberto.
Yes.
Yes. That's your chart. That's what I'm saying.
That's easy. I only have one retrograde planet.
All right.
Which one's that, Robert?
All right.
Luke, you may not be in my saved files. How do you spell your last name?
Giarratano. That's okay.
No, Luke.
He's looking for me. She's looking for me. Bayley.
Oh, that's why.
Are we only going to discuss retrogrades, or are we going to talk about, like, can we talk about the kite in his chart?
Nope.
Okay.
Well, that one of the things with that kite, Raven, one of the things with that kite, it's going to an asteroid called Lilith. So it's an interest. We could talk about it, and going to the south node, so including the nodes. So, but yes, I like Diane. No,
Well, after Luke just said I go on and on and on, right?
no, in a really nice way, Diane. I'm saying that you give people more than they probably expect. You really are a giver of knowledge, and you're very insightful, and that's what I love about what you do. So,
All right, we're going to start with Raven. So now I want you all to participate. So everyone turn on she's got a lot of retrogrades in this chart. So everyone turn on your sound so we can hear you. And so Raven, I'm going to actually start with you, Raven. You tell me what you think, and then we'll go from there. And so let's start with your Pluto on the North Node in the 11th house.
You want to know my experiences or what I think from looking at that?
Either or both.
I
You got a lot of retrogrades.
Yes.
They're all the outer planets from Saturn outwards.
Yes. I think Pluto in retrograde, I think I reflect a lot on my group traumas. anything betrayals I ever experienced, but I also deeply crave those friendships and those networks, specifically a circle. As I get older, I care less. Um, what else can I say about Pluto in the 11th house? Uh, everyone has a story is very real in my life. So far as Pluto in Scorpio goes, like the the sadness of stories is just it's just a group of hurt people.
Well,
So
it's in its own sign, so it's very powerful, very direct,
um
but it's retrograde. So
I
you're,
okay.
go on.
I was going to say I was wondering if there's an age on that, like so let's say just for people that's my age, that's 31. I watch us all, we went to high school together. Is there an age where we like really step into that power? Because I haven't
Yes.
really seen it yet.
I'm going to say that looking for something here. I'm looking at the ephemeris and July 18th, 1994.
So I was about
Okay.
to look. Yeah.
So your Pluto's going to go direct. All right, 18. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. 17 or 18 years old, your Pluto should have went direct.
I went to the military. I
Oh,
joined the military when I was like 16 or 17. I went
okay.
in when I was 18.
So that is you, and it's conjoined your North Node. So
Mhm.
that is you, instead of taking the abuse and turning it inside on yourself and in your internal digestion system. Did
Mhm.
you have digestive problems?
I do as
Um,
I get older.
um, that's you taking your power back and fighting for a cause and fighting for what you believe in and using it constructively in the world instead of projecting it internally. So so it has changed. And it's a conjuncture north node, which means that is your future. And it's not easy for you to do that because your south node is for you to be nice, play fair. You want to be liked. But and that probably won't come into play until you're 42 years old, where you actually take the bull by the horns and really fight for
Mm,
justice.
okay.
But it's already changed for you.
Okay.
But you can identify with it. All right.
Um,
You'll
kind
probably
of.
get involved in groups too. You join the army, that's a group,
Oh,
right?
yes, definitely.
You'll probably join more groups that have internal problems that need to be fought for, or
Mm.
and
Hmm.
that'll be a major theme in your life, actually. That will be a major theme in your life.
I definitely, even in the military, I did kind of disrupt the flow of things, change the little things a little bit, but I don't know.
But so if we look at your Neptune and your Uranus, those are probably going to be retrograde your entire life.
I just had a look, and if you're talking about, equivalent to a shadow period, it's at 34 years of age that Pluto retrograde will come back to the 25-21.
Oh,
So we're
okay.
talking probably in a couple of years' time, going into 2028, that they'll come back to its original spot,
Mm,
which is probably when it releases from the internalization.
okay, I like the sound of that.
Good, good. Thank you, Lou.
That's okay. I was just checking. I thought I'd have a quick look at that.
So the Neptune and the Uranus, which are retrograde, and they'll be retrograde, like I said, probably your entire life, if not to the very end of it. Um, so this is something that you're going to be questioning and working on and processing And I'm gonna, you want me to tell you this or you want to take a stab at it?
Yes, you could tell me.
Well, it's in Capricorn and your Capricorn's intercepted in your first house. So
No.
you, you're questioning authority in general. You don't agree with authority. You don't agree with standards, the status quo. Um,
Yes, I have always gotten in trouble for trying to make something fair and speaking up for myself. Um, yes.
yes, but your Capricorn is all also intercepted in your first house. So you have a hard time. That's what you just said. You have a hard time doing it. You have a hard time, unless someone asks you to, or unless it comes out in conversation where you're counseling someone, um, or you're in counseling,
Mhm.
it may not always come out. But you're going to be battling that. You're working through it. That is something you are going to be working through. And that's okay. Because whenever you have retrograde planets in your chart, that means you're a change maker. You're not here to live the way everyone else does. You're here to change things.
And just so you both know, approximately 76 years of age will be when that Uranus and Neptune go direct together. They go direct at the same year.
Wow.
But Saturn will stay that way your whole life.
Wow. Okay.
So the Saturn retrograde, why don't you tell me about that? What do you think that is?
I think Saturn retrograde is struggle with authority. I think it is definitely for me it's difficulty with discipline, difficulty with structure. Um, I have a lot of squares and oppositions, so things get a little complicated. And it's in my second house, so I would also say financial issues, which is true, but also eventual mastery to all those things. Even when I have problems with authority, I don't internalize it anymore. I used to take it very personal, but it just showed me what I won't do.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yes, and it is in your second house. So it's in Pisces and it's retrograde. So actually that could bring in charitable rewards for you for work that you do, and or you could work for a nonprofit organization. Um,
mm,
but and or it could be through working through public issues, family issues, anything that has to do with healing, healing,
mm,
healing situations. So you could bring in income through those venues, but that would be the focus, I would think, of the work you do in making changes
mm,
in social issues, societal issues, changing the way authority handles um, I'm going to say abuse or families, children, or um, you don't agree with many
yes,
things.
big time.
But so it's not necessarily a bad thing, and it doesn't mean that you're not going to make money. It just means that your money will come from, I think, those types of situations. Luke, what do you think?
I've only just got back.
Oh, okay.
I've missed all of that. So,
Well, that's okay. We're going to
and
move
you were
on.
talking about Saturn, correct?
We were talking about her Saturn in the second house retrograde in Pisces. What do you think
Yep.
that is?
Um, where's it rule? First house. Somebody who's struggles. I would say somebody who struggles at times to accept the values of others. Um, you might find that you have a very strong idealism that you live by, and you don't like, the way people treat each other.
Yes,
Yes.
that's
Yeah,
very accurate.
yeah. The other thing is you've got an idea that Saturn is also opposing your Venus. It's in a T square to the moon. So I look at that and I sort of say there's a possibility that you may have struggled to be understood by a parent or family, maybe your mother,
Hmm.
and you have very different values to in some ways, what you experienced or what you were brought up with versus what your soul knows, your deep, because it's Pisces, that's a very strong, and your Jupiter's in Scorpio. You got a lot of depth there. That's sort of how I would see it. I'm trying to, cut to
Thank
the
you.
chase.
That hit the nail on the head,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But with that Pluto on her north node, I think she's gonna make a lot of changes.
Oh, I
Great,
think that's coming up now.
profound,
I
profound
think
changes.
Raven, that's part of why you decided to learn astrology. You're looking that Saturn is, I want to understand where I sit in this world, and I'm looking for a deeper connection with it, and I want to understand what makes people motivated and tick, and I'm going to learn about it. And I would also say with that Pluto and Scorpio in the 11th, you don't trust very easily. That's
I
that's
Luke,
one of
don't.
them.
I do not.
Yeah.
I try to though. I still give people the benefit of the doubt, but I'm also able to keep
That's the
arm's
Pisces
length.
part of your Saturn. Exactly. The Pisces part goes, are always going to believe that they're going to do the right thing. And then people keep doing things that prove to you shouldn't be trusting them. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's
all
part of
right,
the lessons, It's great little lessons that we all learn along the way until we understand them. So,
all right, we're gonna move
sorry,
on.
I'll
Are
shut
you
up.
good, Raven?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You gave us our money's worth on your chart. You got all those retrogrades.
Certainly did.
All right, Melody Ann.
Actually, there looks to be a bit of a problem here. My rising sign is 23
Yeah,
degrees of
you know
Virgo.
what? I thought I might have done that. I had it on I just did the radio show before and I had
You
I
had
was
my chart
turning
wrong also when you pulled it
yeah,
up.
I was turning the chart. Melody Ann, do you have a 23-degree Virgo ascendant?
Correct.
I was turning the chart, so it gave me the wrong
Position.
chart wheel.
See, we've just gone into
There we go.
we've gone into Mercury shadow period. I think that's what's happening to everyone at the
Let me
moment.
fix Roberts too. Where's Robert?
This is a long Mercury shadow period for this retrograde coming up. It started on the 25th of the 5th, like a few
Robert,
days
you're
ago.
22 degrees Cancer
Cancer.
ascendant.
Cancer, yeah, 2258.
Okay. Sorry about that. All
Have you got
right.
mine? Have you got mine right too, or you don't have it yet?
I believe yours is right. 26 Sag, right? No, that's
No,
not you. Wait, where'd you
that's
go?
not me. That's Raven. I'm 4 degrees Sag.
Oh, for goodness sakes. Where'd you go, Luke? All right. Quit.
Doesn't matter. You've disappeared me.
I did. All right, you're a 4-degree Sag.
Mm-hmm. Sort of where Raven's moon is, just about.
All right.
That's me.
Okay. Let's go back to Melody Ann. All right, Melody Ann. You have a Neptune
Neptune,
retrograde.
Jupiter, Saturn, 2, 3, and 4.
Okay, so very simple. Well, no, we didn't have a Jupiter retrograde before. So, and you have them in different signs placements. So, why don't you start by telling us about your Neptune retrograde and what you think that is?
Ooh,
9.
that Neptune is in the second house, and it's the money house. And my parents had diametrically opposed views about money. And it took me the longest time to figure out how I wanted to handle my finances.
Hmm.
That's interesting. And so if I look at your chart, which is June 30th, 1959, and Neptune is retrograde, and it actually did go direct on you.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got when you were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 years old, it went direct on you.
I
And
don't think
then,
that was the trigger in me changing my finances. It might have been something else. But I remember when the shift happened. I was actually out on my own, which is after 1984.
I
okay.
wouldn't be
And
surprised
if
if it's when Neptune came back out of that, like past that 4 degrees 15 again. Is that what
out
happened?
of the shadow period, because that would
Let's
have
have a look.
given it another.
Can you keep counting until it gets back to 4 degrees 15?
Yeah, that's 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. 32 years old or about,
32 would take you up
maybe
into.
33. 33.
That's when I bought my house.
Uh-huh.
Is there in what course will we learn how to do what you guys are doing right now?
Okay. That's when you start getting into the PSMs.
Mhm.
But that said, there's a lot of that stuff along the way you'll pick up here, for example.
You'll get there,
Um,
Raven.
You'll eventually get there, yeah.
Oh,
But the PSMs cover things like what Diane's doing in a little short term, and there's some tricks you can learn along the way. She's doing equivalent to solar arc or secondary progressions. They're sort of
Mm.
only because the sun tends to work that way. But what are we using there? We're using basically the secondary progressions, aren't we, Diane?
yeah.
So secondary progressions is like a day for a year. So we're saying that after a year, when the sun comes back to the same point, you could say each year it's about 1 day to a year. And what happens is you look at the ephemerides or the planets in the ephemeris, and you go forward with Neptune moving forward by a day. But because yours is retrograde, it goes backwards by a degree. And then when it goes direct, so around that 16 period, 15, 16, what Diane's saying is that's when it would have become stationary direct. There would have been an intensification of that. It might have been, you think about your teenage years, Scorpio, Neptune, you might have had a very different view and once again values to what your parents were. I say values because it's the second house. And it may not have been money. It might have been you went, no. Sometimes people like that might leave home then, or one of the parents breaks up from the other, or there's some sort of shift that changes you, means you change the way you think. And then what Diane's done is then she's kept counting the days until that Neptune has come back to 4 degrees 15. And that's at, what did you say, about 32, 33 years old?
Yeah.
Yeah. And if we go ahead to 30 years from there, that's 1989, and then you've got 2 more years, 1991, thereabouts. And you're saying you bought your house around that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's an asset, which is interesting. So it'd be also interesting to see what Saturn did at that point, because Saturn does rule your fifth house of real estate, and it's in the fourth house.
Yeah, but her Saturn is retrograde most of her life, if not all her life.
When did it go back into Sag?
Let's see. She's 30 degrees, 1959.
Oh, I don't think it's going back to Sag.
What's that?
I don't think that Saturn's ever going back into Sag.
Mm.
31, 62. 62, 63, 64, 65, 66. 66, 67, it went direct.
Saturn did.
Yeah. How old are you?
Right now,
Yeah.
I'm 67 now. No,
Okay, well,
I'm gonna be 67.
all right. Well, your Saturn's going direct
Now.
right
Hmm.
now.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. At 0 degrees Capricorn.
So it never went back to Sag.
No,
No,
Okay.
didn't make it back to Sag.
no. And it's going to be at 0 degrees for like the next 24 years.
All
So,
right, at least it's going direct.
yeah, so it went direct. It went direct.
I mean, because Saturn retrograde in my fourth was about my father and how he always kept me at an arm's length. I mean, the warm and fuzzy is not what you would say to describe my father.
Hmm. So he was removed.
Very.
He was removed. And actually, your Neptune in Scorpio, if you follow that to Pluto in the 12th house, that also shows removed. Information about money was removed from you, private, none of your business.
Oh no, that wasn't it. My father's philosophy on money was you may be dead tomorrow, you might as well get what you want now. And my mother was a penny pincher.
Okay.
And it took me years to figure out a way for me to manage my money.
Okay.
It's the way that works for me.
Okay. Well, now with Saturn direct, you will now become actively involved in the world. Um,
That's interesting.
because up until this point, it's been retrograde. So you've been actively involved in managing your own affairs. Now you're going to start getting actively involved, possibly even starting your own business or creating something that you've always wanted to do, a business of your own.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Um, anyway, so, and then the Jupiter retrograde, um, your Jupiter retrograde went direct on you. So that went direct when you were roughly 19, 20 years old. So you may have been questioning your faith. You may have been questioning God.
I got my driver's license when I was 19. That was my
Mm-hmm.
freedom.
Yep.
Yeah, but it flows into
Third
your
house. Yep.
12th house.
No, it's in her third house.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
it's in
Jupiter's in my third.
Scorpio. It's in Scorpio. So you follow that to the 12th house or you follow it to the 11th. Um, so
Oh,
yeah,
yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Because you Pluto over all the ships. Yeah. Good
yeah.
organized.
So okay, driver's license, freedom, yes, but and then ability to get around, be on your own, manage your own affairs, freedom, yes. But did you have any challenges with faith or, up until that time where did you start to pursue?
Oh, I wasn't raised in a religious household at all. The only time I saw the inside of a church was for a funeral, not a wedding, just a funeral.
Okay. All right. Well, there's something there with the 12th house. Um, and if it's not spiritual, it might have been well, health of some nature. Um,
Can't think of it. The thing that resonates with me when I was 19 was I got my driver's license and I got a car. Actually, that has to be right around the time I started astrology. And that was a major war with my family.
okay. Well, that's faith-based.
That's it. That's what it is. When we talk about faith, it's about
Yeah.
belief systems. That's where I
Oh,
think
yeah.
Diane's triggering there. Jupiter doesn't have to be religion. It can be any sort of belief system.
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah, yeah. So
So
that
very
would be,
good.
yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, it's there. It's just a matter of, well, how did it work?
You good, Melody? And I'm going to move on.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I'm good.
All right, Mr. Gerentano, you've been quiet all night.
Yes,
He's tired, probably. Works hard. This man works hard.
I don't get in trouble that way.
Oh, we like you getting into trouble. All right, you have one retrograde planet, Uranus. And let's look that up. So this is October 5th, 1946. Six.
Robert's got a big birthday this year.
Are we having a party?
Let's hope so.
Robert, are we having a party?
Yeah, coming to Australia and celebrate.
All right, let's go. I'll go.
You guys are welcome anytime.
Okay, October 5th, 1946, and you have Uranus retrograde. So, no, I think it's hopeless for you. It's not going direct. So,
I think it goes direct in 2 years, in 1948.
yes, but you're not, you would have to be, okay, we have 26 plus 30 is 56 plus 31 is 87. You're not 87,
Not yet.
so it's still retrograde.
Oh, he's having a big birthday this year. He's getting closer.
Okay, so let's talk about your Uranus retrograde. It's in the 12th house. It's in Gemini, and it's a lifelong, I'm going to say you were never on board with traditional spiritual or information that was given to you that had to do with 1, 2, 3, 4. Um, 5. With, I'm going to say love, or again, it could tie into the astrology on some level, but it's more than that. It has to do with the feminine principle. I could even see you studying Mary Magdalene or divine feminine energy. Do you do that?
Um, I mean, I was brought up very, very religious. I went to parochial school. Wanted to become a priest when I was 7 years old. I think then I discovered girls a couple years later, so that ended that. And but I've been like I've always had a very rebellious nature.
Would never have guessed that. Hmm.
Always in school, kind of like always challenging or always upsetting the table.
Mm-hmm. But it's more internal than external. It's an internal unease with the way things are explained or handled, or relationship dynamics, or school or education, or the ability to, or anything that actually has to do with there are possible abuse issues that have to do with women. If you see some women being abused, you might take note to that. But it's an internal unease.
Uh,
Do you
Can I,
identify with that?
uh, I mean, I had great parents, but I know my father, like, that I wouldn't say he was abusive to my mother, but like there was always like differences of opinion, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it'd be funny, like when they would cook together, they'd always yell and scream at each other. Too much salt. No, 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 no. Leave that alone. Well, but uh, man,
But
I mean,
having
I think if
Uranus,
anything, I think I was a little precocious toward sexuality when I was young. If you look at your Aquarius ruling my eighth house.
Yeah.
okay,
I was
okay,
going to say that, but I wasn't going to go down I was going to say the fact that it rules his moon, and that moon is in a very strong opposition to Pluto. This is somebody who's constantly being forced to change the way they see things through their environmental scenario, because the environment and the public and what you're doing. Now, I can cheat here because I know that Robert at a stage was like a lot of people in his age bracket was upended and thrown into the war.
oh,
So therefore seeing a lot of Pluto, death, and other issues. So
mm-hmm.
changing your values through a disruptive and upheaval. So that's I'm just throwing that in, Robert, because that's what I can see pretty clearly there. Um, that moon being ruled by that Uranus and not being really able to do anything about that, 12th
Mm-hmm.
house is you're sacrificed. You're sent off. And yeah, that's pretty much what I sort of see a lot of the stuff there.
But again, because it's in the 12th house, it's something that was carried over from the ancestors or the parents.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it would come from your mother's side, I would think. It's definitely has to do with the feminine. Um, and so if it's sacrifice or being sacrificed or um I don't but it has to do with disagreement with the status quo of relationships in general or teachings or healings or anything that has to do with power struggles or domination or
Authority.
Well, I think it's more of authority because I have an issue with with the authority. I've always have
Yeah.
mm-hmm,
because I always feel that they're very hypocritical.
Yeah.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So that really bothers me in a sense. So
You
I can
weren't
see.
someone who drove past the cops and stuck your finger up at them out the window, were you?
I'm sorry.
You weren't someone who drove past police officers and stuck your finger up at them out the window or something like that, were you?
No, I just would pull down my pants and show my ass to them.
Yeah, there
I
you
was going to say that.
This just took a turn for the
And
worse.
if the window was closed, we called it a pressed ham.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Um,
I could see Robert doing that. That's all. Yeah.
No, I've done
I
that.
know, that's what I mean.
Like because I could, like having a very strict parochial edu school. Um, you'd always, there was just too much hypocrisy in my education with religion, with
Yeah,
Catholicism.
I can see the other thing. See that Uranus is in Gemini. Look where his Mercury is. It's in Libra, and his Venus ruling that's in Scorpio. So it all goes back to that sort of no, I don't believe what I'm told. The same thing. I don't believe it, and I don't like the authority, and I don't like what you're doing to me.
Uh-huh.
So, and when I say that Uranus with the moon is, although Robert's like that, and he probably was going off in his own tangent, life came along and threw him into a different environment again. That's what I mean by getting carted off to the wall, being
yeah.
subscribed. So, you were subscripted, were you, Robert, rather than choice, or did you go by choice?
I'm sorry.
Were you subscripted into going into the war through subscription, or did you choose to go?
I no, I felt it was my duty.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. So
And then when I got there, then I realized like it was a big mistake.
yeah, understand.
And that's where my rebelness to authority is, it still lingers.
Yeah, even further exacerbated by that.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And he's got a Mars in Scorpio too. So,
Square in Saturn, so you better watch out.
yeah, that's right.
And also, what really, if you put that on the 90-degree dial, Uranus comes right in on that. So I have a Uranus, a Saturn, Mars, Uranus with Vulcanus. I've had around seven of the fixed and about 22 of the mutables, so 21 of the mutables.
That's interesting.
So I try to go back and see what sort of situations, like trigger events, would trigger those things, but um, it's like an all or nothing type of situation with me sometimes.
But you're definitely a rebel.
Well, like that I won't,
You still are. I mean, it's
no, I definitely, no, of course I am. And then with the Sun Neptune conjunction, I just have this
Yes.
sort of an idealistic quality that I have, and I try to be very realistic because I feel that I think I really miss my calling as a politician in a way
Mm.
yeah,
because I think I would probably have done the
or
right
a
thing.
priest,
I'm sorry?
or a priest. You
Well,
look what you got in the ninth house. You got your Vesta and your part of fortune in Pisces.
right.
That's why he didn't become a politician. So
But it's also just that higher octave of spirituality that I'm always connected to, I guess.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
totally.
Well, also, that's funny because maybe that I just realized something. With that porous fortune, maybe that's why with all that Saturn, Mars, Uranus, Vulcanus, having that porous fortune there, I kind of was very lucky in very tight situations in my life in the past.
Mm.
Especially when I was in combat.
Yeah, I was going to say when you're overseas in the ninth house, foreign lands.
Well, I felt when I went over there, I was coming back alive. So that's I just knew that. I mean,
Yeah.
but
Very interesting.
I'm trying to kind of use that very constructively in my latter years to try to do something very positive and very constructive to society and to the world. Maybe
Yeah.
write or something. I have a lot of good thoughts about something.
It's very
It's
innovative, very
yeah.
innovative, and you could help a lot of institutions.
Well, the funny thing is, just so I mean, if you don't mind me saying, Robert, Robert is a carer for people.
I know.
So, and just for the other people to know, that 12th house relationship to that Uranus and that strong aspect of the moon is somebody who sacrifices his, basically, it works in a service type arrangement with people in a very positive way. So
Yeah, and you
people are,
follow that down to the Mercury with the Chiron. That's caretaking,
yes,
caretaking.
Well, if you throw this if you if you throw the trans-Neptunians there, I have a very tight opposition right to the minute between Chiron and Hades. So, which is really uh being wounded
Auspice.
from previous experiences and in previous incarnations, but also, having some sort of a connection to the past, like, going back in time. And I
mm,
feel with that Uranus retrograde, that no doubt I was an astrologer in previous lifetimes.
yeah,
You
I
think
agree
you
with you.
were?
Yeah,
Just so
oh,
people, just
absolutely.
so Raven, Melody, I'm not sure if you're aware, but the 12th house is often to do with past lives. That's the other area it covers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, very good.
Yes.
Well, we're gonna move on. Robert, are you good?
I'm always good. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Luke, you are on.
Am I the lucky last, am I?
You
So
are lucky last.
I've got two retrogrades, but the interesting one, that Pluto is stationary retrograde.
Is it stationary retrograde?
Yeah.
Let's
And
look up.
and
1966.
the Jupiter is retrograde all my life. The interesting thing, which if you go ahead to now, go ahead, as you can see, it's going to be 60 years this year. You'll find that Jupiter is now at about 25 of Cancer,
Yeah.
and therefore it will be, and I think Neptune moves ahead to 25, and Uranus is 25, and my moon is 25. So what it does is that Jupiter right now is hitting an exact sextile to the moon by progression. And also just bringing them all together, which is an interesting one. Anyway, but it did change.
That
I can't
sounds
remember.
very good,
It
actually.
does
So
sound
where,
good.
so where's your Jupiter retrograde right now? What degree? 24, 25 of Cancer?
About 25 of Cancer.
So you got the
Two.
Jupiter return on that then
Yes, yeah,
a few days
exactly right.
ago.
Jupiter.
Or really
Well,
tonight, probably right
yeah.
now, I guess.
Well, coming up, I think it's 23 still at the moment. So yeah, Jupiter return is coming, or the Jupiter, yeah, Jupiter will transit my natal progressed Jupiter, you could say, soon.
Yeah, Jupiter's
And then it will,
2337 right now. So in
yeah.
the next couple of
38,
weeks, you'll have that Jupiter return on your
38,
progress.
Oh, yeah, my progressed
68,
Jupiter. Yeah.
66. Well, your Jupiter is still retrograde.
Yeah, it'll stay that way all my life. So
It
Yeah.
does? Really?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it does.
So let's talk about that first and then
Maybe that's why we can't win.
Thanks,
Somebody
Robert.
season.
Because
but
it
it
does
can
rule
bring
those.
back abundance.
That's right. So
And the other one, let me see what's going on here.
you got something telling you it wants to
All
update
right,
as
we
you
have
understand.
Jupiter, and then the other one is Pluto. So let's look up Pluto, which is at 20. Yeah, your Pluto's retrograde your whole life too.
Yeah, because it just goes retrograde just before. I think it's stationary retrograde if you have a look.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay. So let's talk about what do you want to start with? Let's start with your Jupiter.
Okay.
All right. So first of all, it's in the ninth house. So, well, that I think that would be a lot of a need for a lot of education, but for the self to understand the self and to understand the past, and possibly even to go back into the past through past lives to understand the self. But it's a constant quest for knowledge about the self.
Hmm.
Um, and it's high.
When did it change sign to Cancer? Can you have a look there? Have you got it?
Um, let's see. That would be
I did know it, but I can't remember now.
that's 6, and then 6 and 15 is 21. So 21, 22 years old
It's when I started studying astrology professionally.
professionally, but you were studying it before that?
Yeah, I started when I was 16, but I was self-taught, and then I started doing like actual formal classes with Chris Turner when I was 21. So,
Okay.
mm.
So that turned into Cancer. So before that, it was about the self.
And
And
Chris is
then
a
it,
Cancer.
what?
And Chris is a Cancer. A
Oh,
Sun
that's
Jupiter conjunction
interesting.
in
Yeah,
Cancer.
that's
Mm.
interesting. But then it started to become, but they're both in the money houses. So, that became your career, it became your profession. The study of higher concepts, higher principles about the self, but also other dimensions as well. So I mean, it's all about your sun's in Capricorn, so it's all about Well, the fifth house, which would be school education, universities, institutions, but it's also, oh my goodness, look at your fifth house. You got your Saturn with all those malefic planets. What are you doing there?
Yeah, it's fun, isn't it?
No.
That's what I mean.
Um, but it, so what you do is you create, um, things to conquer all different types of chaotic situations. I mean, you're dealing with chaos a lot.
Thanks. Yeah, I
Do you
tend to
think a
feel
lot has to do with your children?
partly, yes. It's also that
Because I know
if you
there's
have
a
a
lot of.
if you have a look, there's actually a kite formation across my chart. Oh, not a kite, a mystic rectangle. The mystic rectangle is, you know, you're it's sort of everything is, I call it generational, except for my moon. So you got that Uranus, Pluto opposite Saturn and Chiron. It's in a trine to Neptune, and then that Neptune is opposite the moon, and the moon is trining the Uranus, Pluto, and sextiling the Saturn and Chiron. So everything gets forced out through that moon position. So for me, how that came out is as a child, I had a I sort of had a traumatic in utero experience. So when I was born, my mother, while she was pregnant with me, her sister was murdered.
Wow.
So why that is significant is because she was strangled to death. And if you have a look where my moon is, it sits right on Algol.
Yeah.
So Algol is the fixed star of strangulation. So I believe that my mother's trauma carried over to me. I have memory, which is the moon, of all of that going on in the womb. I remember telling my mother off when I was about 18 months old, sitting in a high chair, telling her I wanted to be born in September and not December because she was drowning me. So when I was born, I had an absolute fear of water. They couldn't even put me in a bath.
And
I
that's
also
all
had,
the Pisces.
yeah, and I also had colic. And when I
Yeah.
had colic, it lasted for 3 months. I also ended up becoming sick at 18 months old, and they pumped me full of antibiotics. And then after that, developed celiac disease. So I was growing up as a celiac before it was even known really what it was half the time.
You got a lot in this chart, Luke.
Mm, yeah. And that moon Neptune is in intercepted, if you have a look here. So what I did, so everyone can, this goes into a little astrocartography lesson, is when I was born in Sydney. That Epping is in Sydney. I now live in South Australia. And by moving to South Australia, I've now relocated that Jupiter at 2 degrees of Leo sits right on the midheaven of my chart now. My midheaven moves back to 2 degrees Leo. It moves my rising sign to 20 degrees Scorpio and brings the Neptune into the first and puts the moon into the seventh. And it's only then did all the rubbish in my life start to go away. Because everything before that was always hidden, and people I brought into my life, especially important women in your life, were often either lying, deceiving, or doing other horrible things. So that's
But
pretty much how it worked. So I had
but
to do
then
something radical to change it.
that would have put all that Saturn, Chiron, Black Moon, and Eris into your sixth house.
Not quite, if you have a look at the distance, because you're talking about it. The 23 degrees of Aries is the sixth house cusp, and they're way back at 23 Pisces. So it moves it back, but not that far.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think it keeps everything. I'm not sure about Venus moving into the third. I think it still stays where it is.
Yeah.
But pretty much, and the moon Neptune change is probably the biggest one.
Okay.
And if you go to the astrocartography, what do you call it, softwares, and then you talk about one of those best places to live, for me, I'm living there right now. And when I moved here, that's when I got involved with Robert doing horse racing, which is at Jupiter. And also from there, I ended up with the school. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
It's all about the purpose of what I'm doing it for.
But
So
what you tend to do is fix problems that are um, unhealthy.
yeah, do you know what my kids used to say? I used to have them in the back of the car. We'd be driving along, and I'd say, "What's Dad do?" And they'd all yell out, "Dad, get shit done."
There you
So
go.
yeah. So that's makes me laugh, but that was sort of the part of the joke
Yeah.
of it all. But yes, and that Pluto retrograde, stationary retrograde, I think was the cause of, you talk about intensifying.
Yes.
That's what I think was the intensification, and I think it comes, we could look at it and say, is it past life related? Potentially. And I think it is partially because it's that Neptune's in the 12th house and it's ruled by that Pluto. Um, but it's also, I think, part of the trauma of what I experienced via my mother, the moon, during the actual pregnancy process.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a combination of all that. So, yeah, so it's interesting. So I just find those two retrogrades. I don't like your comment, Robert. Oh, that's why we don't win. I'm going to have to change that. I think I like Diane's. It's all the wealth coming back later. Just got to do
Next
the work
lifetime.
first. Yeah. Don't say next lifetime.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I mean, have you won it all?
Yeah, look, we win, but
We
we're just looking for the big one.
we swing for the fences.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, what it is, Diane, and for those who want to know, Raven, Melody Ann, I started by chance looking for why astrology works, going way back. And I needed something that I knew in advance when it was going to happen, where it was going to happen, and it was a short duration and had an outcome. And I couldn't think of anything. And then I worked out the only thing I can work out that I could do that with was a horse race. Because generally you know where they're running from, they run on time and they're short duration and you have a winner. And then when I started looking at that, I looked to find out if planets had more effect over it from others. I went, yeah, they do. Because I had 10 winners in a row. And I went, oh my God, I've just broken the Da Vinci Code. Now, mathematically, that's pretty hard to get. And this is going back to about 1993 or 4 or something, about 1994. And then the next race comes along and I put a bucket load of money on it and the horse comes like fifth. And I went, why? That doesn't make sense. And that led me on a whole path of finding out why, which is what I think that retrograde Jupiter does. So it gives me, and then it taketh thee away until you learn. So what happened was that I've now worked out that if you have a planet in a significant position that's on its own, that has strength, that you know is going to work, and you got a horse race at that moment in time, at that place, and all lines up, and there's one horse in the race that reflects that planet's energy, it's always going to win. And it does. But you can't sit around waiting for the one race all the time with everything else.
Yeah.
So what Robert's done is he went and sat through my lecture on that back in 2020, and then reached out and said, "Do you want to help me with this?" And at the time, I was like, I didn't have the college, and I thought, "Yeah, okay, I'll do that." And that set us on a challenge because look, I'm a Capricorn. You give me a challenge, I want to try and climb that mountain. So yeah, so it was like we now pick the big races because they got the big pools, and we've been trying to nail the pick sixes, and we're talking about if we nail one of those, it could be big dollar payouts, anywhere up to $1 million. So I thought I'm better to try and do that with Robert than try and win a lotto because just things like four firsts and 2 seconds, and you can get that, but that doesn't give you the win. And we do it all the time. So when we get to what's the next one, Robert? We've got the Breeders'
Next
Cup.
week. No, next
Oh, no,
week is the Belmont Derby
Belmont Derby. We'll have a look at that. But I'm
in
talking about the big
Saratoga.
ones.
There'll be a lot of good races on that card next Saturday.
So we'll have a look at that. But when we get to the end of the year, November, first week of November, that's Breeders' Cup, isn't it?
Yes, usually I think it's the 31st of October or something like that. So that
Yeah.
last.
So we have the Breeders' Cup, and then on the Tuesday after we have the Melbourne Cup in Australia, two big race days. And we try and get those. And we've been successful and unsuccessful at the same time. So, but that's a whole other
I
thing.
mean, I can't on these pick sixes. I'd probably say for the last 4 or 5 times that we did this, I had four winners, and the horses that beat me in the other two races or beat us in the other two races, or horses came in second by a head or by a nose or something like that. So we were right there.
We're getting close. Anyway, so that's what I
But you
think.
know, it is very challenging because it's a good concept of like, I mean, you could do a chart for somebody and you're going ahead in time and you don't know how things are going to play out like 4, 5, 6, 7 years from now or directions, but this is like a good exercise and within 2, 3 minutes, you know what happened. So you can go back and
Yeah,
review and see certain things and just hone in on your astrological skills.
yeah.
Yeah.
And not only that, when we do it, we use many different types of astrological technique in order to pick those. And if you go over any of those, even some of the chart delineation practices, we stuffed up one of them last time, but we got close. You'll
Well, what
understand why.
happened, you know, like when we first started this, Luke we were just looking at the pizza pie chart, just the regular natal chart, and then I kind of like I've been doing Uranian astrology for a long time, so I always like to put things on the 90-degree dial, and certain things really show up, and like it really helps pick certain things or how what sort of situation would happen by putting things on the 0 degrees of Aries and see what the general environment or the what the crowd or what was happening to the people at that time and also whatever midpoints would hit on the meridian, the ascendant, and also the 0 degrees of Aries. And I think by those three key you parts of the zodiac, and they are very important, like the meridian, the ascendant, and also the 0 degrees Aries. It tells a lot about what's going on.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, I know one time I spoke to you about this, Diane, about doing some sort of course, and Lucas is another one, but just looking at your personal planets and see what sort of midpoints are on the personal planets tells a lot about you, a lot about the person.
Mm.
What sort of characteristics and psychological and certain energy that you don't see on a regular chart. And
So can I add to that? Because I've got an example in front of you.
I'm sorry.
And for those that don't know what a midpoint is, just in case Raven and Melody Ann haven't come across it, it's where a planet by degree is its halfway point between two others. So the actual midpoint, that's what it is. If you look at my Venus and Neptune, the midpoint is Mercury. So if you count, you've got 7 more degrees for Neptune to get into Sagittarius. That goes up to 25. So
I
because
mean,
it's
if you
seven
want,
plus
if you
18.
can you
And then
share
you
the
go,
wheel? Can you share the chart now, Diane?
Aren't I?
Can you share? Give me the
You
because
don't see the chart?
no, I just if you could share me, I want to show an example with the people that like
Oh,
Raven.
you want to see this?
No, if you can give me the chart, the way I could share the chart or
Share the screen.
yeah, share the screen.
Oh, you want to share the screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's see here.
Stop share.
Okay, let me see here.
Participants.
Let me get out of this here because I have to do this first.
Robert.
Okay.
Okay.
everyone's going to look at that chart and go, "What's that?"
Can you see this chart?
Yeah, we can.
No, I don't see it.
You don't
Can't
see it
you see
now?
that?
You see it? Let me look.
Can you see that, Luke?
I can see it. What about you, Raven? Melody Ann, can you
Oh,
see the?
yeah, I see it.
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I can't see the entire wheel on the screen.
No, that's because it's a 90-degree dial. That's what Robert's showing. He can go to the wheel, see at the top left-hand corner, but he's showing.
I know, but it's chopped off on the top and bottom.
Oh, is it?
Okay,
It's not on my
On
end.
mine.
Yeah, I'm seeing the whole thing.
okay. Well, this was when the race of the Preakness went off. So you could see what was at the 0 degrees of Aries. You had a combination of the nodes and Volcanus, along with the Sun and Volcanus and Zeus. So to me, I knew there was going to be like some sort of an upset right there, and or something like what Luke would call would be a roughie. And if you put it on the ascendant over here, where's the meridian?
What are we looking at?
This is a 90-degree dial of
No, what's Preakness?
That was the race. That was the race that went
a
off like
horse
3 weeks
race.
ago.
Oh, okay.
Let's see, where
Where are
is
you looking for with the dial? You're looking for the ascendant's down the bottom and the midheaven's just across from it.
here's the meridian right here.
Yeah.
So this would, look when we look at this is very important because we want to see what's going on in the meridian, and you can see that Mercury, when you see these little black dials, they're connected to the 90-degree dial, so that has some sort of a significant. To have the Mercury there was very, very important. And along with Cronus and the Meridian, I'm trying to think of the name of the horse that won that race. There was a woman who won the Preakness, I believe. No, that was the one that won the Kentucky Derby. Uh,
Hold on. They won't find for you. Napoleon Solo.
this is basically this wheel helps. If you take like a planet, then that's how you find the midpoints. So if you look at, the sun, the midpoint of the sun and Aries, that's basically that's the self. That's the ego and your relationship to the environment and whatever trance is like that hit this midpoint over here, it'll always bring out some sort of like uh, some sort of an event or occurrence. Now, when that race went off, uh, there was a strong thing with Mars and Kronos, and the meridian was tied in with Neptune. And I'm trying to think of the name of that horse that won the race, but like there was a lot of. Well, anyway, this is what
Napoleon Solo.
I'm sorry,
So it works?
Napoleon Solo.
Napoleon Solo.
Does it work?
Well, it's funny because like if you go
Does
the
it
90
work?
degree dial over here. Well, no, well here's Kronos and Napoleon would be Kronos. It would be someone who's a leader, okay? And it was tied in with the Aries point. So I know you had that horse number one. We
I
had it
did.
in
I
a
picked it to
couple of
win
things.
with.
I think you picked the winner, I think, at that time. But
Yeah.
like when I look at the 90-degree dial now, you have the Chronos there with Aries right on the meridian.
Yeah.
And then
So there's more detail in this than probably even Diane wants to know at the moment.
all right, well this is the
Diane is getting tired.
This
Yeah,
is,
yeah,
well, I think everybody's getting tired.
yeah.
But
Even
this
I'm
is
tired.
part
It's
of
the
like
morning.
something, this is another system of astrology that kind of like shows other things that you just don't see normally
Yeah,
on a piece of pie chart.
No,
that's
you're
that.
right. It's a completely different way to look at the event.
Now
So
it's funny,
just
what now also what we got involved in recently with Barbie, we're looking at vibrational astrology because now we look at vibrational astrology, you're getting a certain number or a vibration number, and those numbers usually indicate something, and that just it worked out pretty well in the Kentucky Derby, right, Luke?
it did, yeah.
And
So you're
also with where there was some horses that were disruptors, and there was about 4 or 5 disruptors in that race, and one of them did come in and
and
really
won
won
it.
the race on the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, but it's a matter of picking which one it is. That's where it becomes the
Well, that's
interest.
what we're learning.
Yeah.
But you're
But we
having
get,
fun doing it.
well, it's a
Yes.
challenge, and I think Luke and I we like challenges.
Yeah. We'll get there eventually. But yes. So, any questions for Diane? I'm thinking because you want to get yourself to bed soon, Diane, don't you? And you've
Yes, I
been
do.
going along
Um,
for quite a while. Has
No
anyone
yeah.
questions,
got
just
any
thank you.
questions, Melody? All right. Thank you very much,
Yes, thank you. Thank you
Okay,
guys.
nice meeting
Thank you,
you,
Diane.
Raven, and
Yeah, me as well.
hopefully
Melody
we
Ann.
didn't confuse you that much.
No, it was a
Look, there's
good
a lot.
class. I do not
Yeah.
take credit for being over though.
No, you can blame the boys.
Yes, I'm
That's
blaming
a
the boys for this one.
Yeah, yeah,
that's a
yeah.
wild jacket you're wearing, Luke.
Yeah, it is a bit wild. Well, it keeps me
Diane,
warm.
thank you very much. As
Oh,
always, you're the best.
oh, well,
Yeah,
you're welcome. I'm working on my timing.
yeah.